Facebook Live of the year. And what a great way to start, but with a Q&A about homeschooling with Sonlight. We've got 3 veteran Sonlighters here, and we're really excited to share all their knowledge with you. A little bit of housekeeping, we can see your comments. I'm going to try to switch back and forth so I know who they're coming from, but I'm sorry if that gets a little confusing as we go along. But I will do my best to get through as many questions as you have. We also have some questions that we started with. So if nothing gets answered, we will certainly be going through and answering them as the week goes along, as the live is published on the website after the show. So we'll have our advisors go through, and we'll have, if Tricia and Deana are welcome to comment as well on any of those questions we don't get to. So thank you all for joining. I'm just going to read this because they both have such impressive, they all 3 have such impressive bios. I don't want to mess them up. No one wants to do that, right? So let's start with Tricia. Tricia is the author of more than 70 books. I have her most recent book here. I started reading it, Calming Angry Kids. I started reading it yesterday because, I might have that problem sometimes. Anyway, I started reading it yesterday. You can find this on Amazon and where else, Tricia? I'm sorry.
Amazon, any online bookstore or local bookstore.
There you go. So Tricia is the author of more than 70 books. She is a USA Today best-selling author and has also won 2 Carol Awards and is a Retailer's Best Award. She was also an eCPA Gold Medallion nominee and a Christie Award nominee. She's spoken at events such as MomCom, Raising Generations, and Teach them diligently. She is the host of a podcast, Walk It Out. She's a homeschooling mom of 10, including 7 by adoption. Tricia is also the grandmother of 4 and the wife of John. With a busy life, she understands the importance of making every word count. If you want to learn more about Tricia, visit her at triciagoyer.com. Deana is also joining us. Deana Wood is born and raised in Arkansas. She spends her days enjoying her family and homeschooling her 4 children. In addition to these things, she also works with her husband, Tim, in children's ministry, and is the founder and teacher of the Schoolhouse, the local homeschool her local homeschool cooperative. In her spare time, she enjoys collecting old things. I love that. Reading, we all love that. And blogging about her 2 favorite topics, homeschooling and adoption. You can find her over at redeemingthedaysblog.com. Her ultimate goal, however, is to glorify God and delight in his perfect gift of salvation every single day. Thank you both for joining us. Marci is our Sonlight advisor who's joining us today. She is the proud mom of 2 wise and thoughtful young women. Marci has used Sonlight to homeschool both of her girls K through 12. She is ecstatic to say that they both have found success in their collegiate academic pursuits. And she is married for over half her life. And she loves the adventures she experienced with her favorite companion. The best part of being an advisor, she says, is getting to encourage and pass on what she has learned to new generations of homeschool moms. Marci is an avid reader and a firm believer that no child is too old to read aloud. And her children agree. I'm Stephanie Rose. I'm the Sonlight Community Manager. I'm hopeful that we'll have a few more of these through the year, so please join us. Let's get started with our first question. So we've had a lot of people over the years ask a ton of questions to us. The first thing I want to know is to get to know your family a little bit so people can really relate to what you're talking about. So Deana, why don't you tell me a little bit about, who you're teaching, your family dynamic, and then what a day with Sonlight looks like.
So I have 4 children. My oldest is 12, and then they go 11, 8, and 7. And I also, a few years ago, we started a little co-op here. And when I say that, we joined another family. And so we've got two families that kind of school together, and I teach. And so in a day, I've got 7 kids that I'm teaching at some point. And so we start the day at 8 o'clock. We are early homeschoolers, I guess, when you think of homeschooling. And we start with our couch subjects. So we kind of do like a morning time where we're all together. And then they work on independent assignments while I do one-on-one tutoring. And we have a break for recess and snack and read aloud at about 10. And then we finish up like that, just with that independent work and tutoring until noon. And then 2 days a week we'll come in the afternoons and we'll do history and science. So this is my first year to try that. Usually we kind of spread it out, but this year I'm trying to kind of put it all in an afternoon, like all of history for the week in an afternoon. And so hopefully it's going to work well. We'll see.
Tricia, how about you?
Yeah, so we have 10 kids, and I've been homeschooling since 1994, so I'm like old homeschool mom. We have 3 that are graduated adults. 2 of them, well, one of them is in college, one of them teaches at a university in the Czech Republic, and one of them's in insurance. So those 3 are gone out of the house. And then we adopted 7. The oldest one is in college. She's 18 now. And then so I have 6 kids at home that I homeschool. And we are homeschooling between the ages of 8 years old and 15 years old. So the kids are 8, 11, 14, and 2 15-year-old twins. And what I do through our days, we wake up usually at about 8 o'clock. So when you're starting school, we are just waking up, which I love that, especially with teenagers. I love to be able to let them sleep in. Our goal is usually to start between 9 and 9:30. And we all start with a morning time around the dining room table. And I do like 95% of everything around our dining room table with all the kids together. And I've just found that worked the best for me having this wide variety of kids. And we use 2 cores right now. So I have a core for the younger kids and a core for the older kids, but we do everything together. So all the read out louds, everyone gets to hear. And because we just adopted the older girls in 2016, so it's almost been 3 years. In fact, tomorrow will be 3 years celebrating their adoption day. They've never been homeschooled. So I really felt like all the books, even though they're for the younger kids, that they will really benefit them too. And some of their favorite books have been the read out louds for the younger kids. And so we do that from about 9:30 till about 12:30. We take breaks in between. We kind of bring some fun into it. So we always start with a prayer journal and a missionary story, which are kind of in addition to Sonlight curriculum. And then we just start going through the Sonlight books. And I have a little chart. I can even show you kind of the chart I set up. So it actually, like every day, you can see the different read out louds, and the 2 different colors are their 2 different books. And then we try to see how much we get done, which means because I'm doing all the read out louds for all the kids, usually we don't finish in a year. Sometimes it takes us a couple extra months before we're able to finish, but I feel like it's totally okay because they're enjoying it. And then after lunch, that's when I'll sit down with the little kids and do the math and that sort of thing with them. And then the older kids, I'm very thankful because my 23-year-old is a broke college student. And so I pay him to do math and science with the older girls. So that is really working for me right now. I hope he'll continue to stay a poor college student for a little bit longer because I'm really benefiting from that. So the older girls are doing kind of their personal stuff in the afternoon with their brother. And so, but I'm pretty much done probably by like 1:30, 2 o'clock with the kids.
Wow. Well, I think that benefit is awesome, using your resources as you can.
Yes.
So both of these women are using 2 cores. So they each are doing 2 cores. We keep getting this question over and over again. And I've seen that sometimes, I've seen Tricia answer it before on our Facebook page. So let's talk a little bit about that. Tell me about how you structure the day through two cores, and are you the only one reading aloud? Tricia, do you want to go hit that one first?
Sure. Yeah. So what I do when we're doing 2 cores is, at first I would just like pick whatever books I felt were most important. And sometimes it was mostly the older kids' books, and we'd kind of weave in some of the younger kids' books. But what I've just started doing recently, which the kids really like, is like we all not make them. We'll start with Story of the World, because I make the older girls take notes, and that's like the most time consuming, because they're, how do you spell this and how do you spell that, and that's kind of like the one, as we're reading, I make them take notes, just because I know when they get to college I want them to be able to know how to follow along and take notes, like when I'm reading or when someone's lecturing. And then after that, we just started a new thing. We have 6 kids, and so I get a dice and they roll the dice, and then the person that has the highest number gets to pick what book we do next. And so they'll pick, maybe it's a science book, or for like one of the younger kids' science books, or maybe it's one of our read out loud historical novels. And so that's kind of fun, because they're all excited, and it just brings a little fun into the day. And yes, I do have the older kids take turns reading out loud. And because we adopted them, most of them are struggling learners. And so the older girls were in public school before we got them, and so they had IEPs, and they were 2 of them stayed back a year, and so they were kind of even struggling readers. And so I think that's even helped them learn how to change voices, and how to have a rhythm when you read, and how to pronounce words. And so I think that's just as valuable to them. But I would say I probably do 80% of the reading out loud. And that's another thing. Out of the 6 kids, 5 of them have ADHD. So they do take some medication that helps with that, which they've been taking it since before I adopted them. But they are all fidgeters to the max. So they are all doing Legos, they're doing Play-Doh, they're coloring. So that's one of the reasons why I choose to do most of the reading out loud, because all of them are busy with their hands. And my husband, he works from home, and he'll come and walk through the dining room, and like one kid has Play-Doh, one kid has perler beads, and one kid is painting, and he just looks at me like, how could you even concentrate on reading the book when they're all doing that? But it really helps them to be able to do something with their hands, or sometimes I'll say, draw the scene from this book that I'm reading, or just give them something creative to do while I'm reading out loud.
That's a really good idea, have them draw a scene. Your children aren't alone. I'm a putty. I play with putty too.
Oh yeah, you play with putty too. Yes. So they do all that kind of stuff. Their hands are moving, which is, I think, the biggest challenge is afterwards the table's just covered with stuff, and it's like dining room table right when you walk in my house, and we have to go anywhere, and the mess is there. But I try every night before dinner, we get it all cleaned up again. So it's a big mess, but it really works for our kids.
Absolutely. All right, Deana.
Well, I would just reiterate what Tricia was saying. My kids have always enjoyed each other's books so much. And so they have listened in on everybody's core. And I think that the younger kids pull out a lot that you don't expect from the older books. And I think the older kids really enjoy the younger books too. So basically, pretty much what we do is all together too. Now, I don't require my younger kids to sit in with my older kids, but they normally choose to do that. And one of the things that I love so much about Sonlight is that I feel like it has increased their attention spans, because they have learned to sit and listen. And as Tricia was saying, they have learned to sit and draw, or, my youngest daughter crochets, and she can only do a chain, but man, by the time we finish, those chains are so long. And so I feel like they just have really excellent attention spans, because they sit through all all those good books. And sometimes we'll find at the end of the year that my older kids have a favorite book that was in my younger kids level, and then my younger kids have a favorite book that was in my older kids level. So that's probably, I mean, I think I'm just kind of agreeing with her on that. But one of the other things that I don't mind doing is I do not mind skipping a book here and there. It does not bother me at all. And so a lot of moms that I hear from, moms and dads that homeschool, they'll say, how do you get through all the books? And a lot of the time we don't. You know, we'll hold some over, and I've found that if I put those books out in a basket and pretend like I don't want them to read them at all, they will pick them up eventually and read them, you know, and just really enjoy it. And so it's not a wasted book, even if you don't get to it.
Absolutely. Marci, you're shaking your head on that one. You got any advice for us?
Oh, yeah. I always did 2 levels with my girls, too. And I probably don't have anything new to add because I did mostly the same thing. We usually ended up doing the books from the older core and weaving in some of the younger ones for the younger child as, you know, appropriate, or the well-loved favorites. And she did the same thing. She would illustrate because she's such a visual learner. So she would illustrate. She's an art major now, so go figure. But she would illustrate as I was reading, and I have to tell you, that's like a treasured thing for me. I still have those books of illustrations, and I can't part with them. It's just such a big part of her childhood. But, you know, just using whatever learning style they have and eliminating the books that, you know, didn't click, and, you know, you just kind of weave it together.
I think that's the one thing that, you know, everyone that is veteran Sunlighter, and we encourage even at Sonlight, you know, make it your own. The schedule's there for you to use, but, you know, you can use it loosely. You can follow along exactly. And that's sort of the flexibility that comes along with Sonlight.
Yeah, and I can just add, too, also, when you're doing 2 cores, even though the 2 older girls are 9th grade, I'm doing core H. Instead of moving to 100, because that was ancient history along with the core C that I'm doing. So we're just doing ancient history. So even though it's like different time periods, and so next year I'll be moving into 100, and so we're going to be doing American history, and then the younger kids will be moved up. So I try to at least balance it, so we're not doing like American history and ancient history or something like that.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, they're learning plenty. And even with my oldest daughter, before she went to college, she would listen to a lot of the read out louds, even to the younger kids, and it just really benefited her.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. We got another question while we were talking about that, so I think it fits in with this. And Sarah asked, I'd love some scheduling tips for combining cores with multiple children. I think we've hit on it, but are there additional tips that you'd like to give her? Deana.
So I kind of just had a way of keeping it in my head that we tried to do the younger level early in the morning and the older level in the afternoon, just because if my younger kids just could not hold it together any longer, they could go to their rooms and take a nap or just have some quiet time. And my older kids were still fresh in the afternoon because they didn't really need to rest anymore. So that's kind of how I split it up. And we always broke it up with the table subjects. You know, we would start with couch subject in the morning, and I would throw in some of the younger level books during couch subjects. And then we'd have some table subjects time, and then we'd take a break, and then we'd have a read aloud. And I always do at least one read aloud while they're eating. Having them fill their mouths is such a good way to read. So I always did that with a snack time, and then we would go back to table subjects, and then we'd have lunch. And then in the afternoon, I would do my older kids level.
Very good.
One thing that we sometimes did if we had 2 read alouds going, which happens, we would do one during school time or during lunch and one at bedtime. And then Dad could be home usually for the news story or the higher level book and share that with them. And that usually helped to space out our day a little bit more.
Very good. We got another question about audiobooks. Do any of you use them? How do you feel about them? What's going on there? Tricia.
Yeah, I've used audiobooks. I think I've only used a couple for the read out louds, but if I'm not sitting there, because I'll think, especially I did one during Christmas time, I'm like, I have all these presents to wrap, but if I'm not sitting there, they get way distracted and talk. I do use audiobooks more for their readers. I have some kids that will love to crochet and like Deanna said, and they can listen to the audiobook and crochet or do those sorts of things too. So sometimes they will ask me if I could find out if there's an audiobook of their readers, and we've done that before too.
Awesome. Deana?
I feel really good about audiobooks. I don't use them a whole lot for our read alouds, but like Tricia, I like them a lot for their individual readers. Just if, maybe one of them gets a little bit behind on their reader schedule or something, we'll throw in an audiobook. I love audiobooks for nighttime though. We play audiobooks as they're falling asleep a lot. And I know that they probably miss a lot of the story, but it really helps them to calm down and rest. And usually they'll listen to one audiobook over, 2 or 3 times or something. And so I figure they probably get the whole story. But I really enjoy reading aloud to them anytime I can. My kids kind of have a running joke that mom enjoys the books more than they do. So I hate to miss out on any of the books.
Yeah, we like listening to them in our car. That's when we are on a long drive, for sure, I am racking up those points on Audible.
Yeah.
So I have another question. How long does it take to teach Sonlight each day? So you guys kind of talked about that in that Tricia said she's from like 9:30 till about 2.
Well, I would say by 12:30 or 1, we're done with like all the read out louds and that sort of thing, and then they're kind of doing individual work. So we're popping in and I'm helping someone, and I would say definitely by the older kids are done by 2. The younger kids are usually, it doesn't take that much time. I'd say by 1 o'clock.
Deana?
We're about the same. I like to have most everything done by lunch. And then if there's anything kind of straggling, we can handle that in the afternoons. But if at all possible, they're really done by lunch, as far as group things are concerned. And so we try to be finished. Now, like I mentioned, this year we are bunching all of our history and science onto one day. So I haven't really had a lot of experience with that yet, so I'll let you know how it goes.
Yeah.
I will just add too that before we adopted our girls, the adoption was final. They were in public school and they had gone to public school their whole lives until we adopted them. And there was so much homework in the evening that they would be at school all day, and then they would just have hours and hours of homework, which that's something I'm really thankful for. We're done by 1:30 or 2. They might be reading one of their readers in the evening or something like that, but I love not having all the hours of homework in the evening, that we could just spend time board games or going on a walk or making dinner together. That really has been a huge thing, and the girls love it too. They don't have to spend 3 hours every night doing homework.
Absolutely. So how do you keep from feeling overwhelmed as the kids get older and the books get longer? Tricia?
I think just realizing that if we don't finish everything in a year, or if we have to put a book down, and if it takes longer to read a book, and sometimes, we'll have to, the schedule say read 12 pages in this book or 10 pages, I'll just read half of that because I could tell everyone's getting antsy and we need to get up and get a break. But the book we're reading right now is pretty thick. I mean, there's probably like 12 pages scheduled a day, and just realizing like I don't have to finish it every day. Like I don't have, and seeing the curriculum guide as a help instead of as a slave master is really important to us. And just breaking that up into, if I could tell they're getting antsy or they're getting distracted, just know that we can pick it up again the next day. But also, I mean, sometimes we'll get to the chapter and they'll beg me to keep going. So that's okay too. Just kind of go with being more flexible.
Absolutely. Deana?
Well, mine are not super old yet. My oldest is only in 7th grade, but in the last 2 years, I have found that I have really had to give him more responsibility for his own level. And so he has read a lot of books on his own. He's gone through some of the history and science on his own, and we'll kind of meet up and talk about it. But I'm not sitting there reading to him. Now, that doesn't mean I don't read aloud to him because he gets that a lot. But I tend to pick the younger books for everybody to read together. So I say that I probably just hand things over is one way that I keep from being overwhelmed. But we also try to take a lot of breaks, and when we take a break, I like to reevaluate kind of how things are going. And if something needs to change, I'll change it. But those breaks are really good. And I know that there are a lot of people that get scared to take breaks because you'll get behind, but you're never really behind in homeschool. And especially with Sonlight, because the levels that my kids have gone through are good for any age all the time. And so anytime they continue learning, you're not behind.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So in line with high school, Sarah asked, once you get to the high school levels, 100 and above, is reading and work mostly independent? How about Marci, since we know you've been there?
Well, so is Tricia. Yeah, Sonlight's 100 and above are actually designed for independent study. So it really isn't reading aloud anymore. You have a student guide and they can pick that up and know their assignments for the day. And then you have your parent guide where you touch base with them with your answers and have your discussions. So is that the answer to the question?
Yeah, I think so.
And I would say we gave our daughter the choice because we always started Bible time together and we did a prayer journal and missionary stories. So she started with this, and I let her, she could stay for read out loud, so she could go. And then she did have her junior and senior year. She did have her own course that she did independently that I would check in with her and go over things. But she probably stayed at a couple hours because she liked listening to the younger kids' books, and I think that was beneficial for her. And we even saw on her ACT scores, her reading comprehension jumped huge. And I think that came from even just sitting there listening to me read out loud to the younger kids.
Okay, Sarah asked us a hard question. She says it's a hard question. If you can only choose one core for a child age 13 before she starts high school level 100, which core would you choose? Tricia.
We're really loving H right now. Maybe that's because what we're doing, but we're enjoying all the books and it's ancient history. So we're enjoying that.
Marci?
I think I'd say F, because I like the way that F examines a part of the world that we don't see in other levels. It's kind of unique. So if I had one to do before high school, I think I'd do that one.
Deana?
I know that you're not quite there.
That is such a hard question. I was really content just staying out of that one. My favorite core so far of all time is C. Like, hands down, I just love C. And I think that we came in to Sonlight when, and we started B and C, the combined B and C. And I loved it so much that I really think that when I think about it, I just get warm fuzzies or something. But I think on a more practical level for age 13, I think that I would have to pick F. But again, I've only been to G. So, I don't know how great my advice is here, but.
Right. That is a hard question, Sarah. That's what you take away from it.
Yes. They're all.
We had another question from Joy. How do you fit extracurricular activities into your life? And how much do you give your children? Deana?
I oftentimes wonder how you would fit extracurricular activities in if you do public school, because I find that a lot of our extracurricular stuff is done during the day. So on Mondays, both of my girls take gymnastics, and they really enjoy that. And our local gymnastics place has a homeschool group, so that's Monday afternoons. And my boys both play basketball. My youngest boy plays with the community league, and they do practice at night. But my oldest in Arkansas, you can actually go to public school and take classes, just whatever you want to take. And so this year he's actually taking basketball in the public school. So he goes for one class during the day and then comes back to finish the homeschool day. And he's really enjoying that a lot this year. So our rule has generally been that everybody can do one thing. You have to pick your one thing. But we do try to make sure that everybody has the one thing.
Very good. Tricia?
Yeah, so for extracurricular activities, we had the same thing. They could pick one thing a year. But then when we adopted, we had 7 in the house. That's still way too much. And so I picked the one thing, which all of them do Taekwondo. And thankfully, all of them really enjoy it. And the teacher is a Christian lady who is just awesome with them. She's so encouraging and inspiring. And so from 8 to 15, all the kids ages 8 to 15, they all go. It was just Tuesday and Thursday nights. And then they worked up to where they could do sparring. So it's 3 nights a week for an hour, and it's only like 10 minutes from our house. So we do that. But I do want to add too that I mentioned our kids have some special needs. And so we have 6 hours of therapy also to do a week. And it's a wonderful Christian therapy office that does speech therapy and reading therapy. 3 of my kids have dyslexia. And so we worked it out with them, even though it's 30 minutes away, where I go up there for 3 hours a week. And then in the afternoon, and then she'll actually come 3 hours in one of the mornings. So as I'm going through my homeschool day, she'll just pull out a kid. So that has been really helpful. So even though that's not extracurricular activities, that's something that is added. And so I'm thankful that they were able to work with us. But yeah, having them all doing the same activity has really been helpful for us.
I'm sure. We are a one, pick yours. That's what we do. So everyone does their thing. So we are doing that. We had another question. How do you help a perfectionist try new things without having constant meltdowns over mistakes? Christina, have you seen the Sarita's word for today? Because it's all about growth mindset. So read that, and then we're also going to talk a little bit about that with you guys. So Deana, how do you help a perfectionist try new things without having constant meltdowns?
Well, I don't have a lot of perfectionists in my, we are okay with being average around here. But my youngest child is probably my most perfectionist child. And I think that the biggest thing with her, if we're taking a spelling test, she will just delay the spelling test if she does not know the answer. If she doesn't know how to spell it, she will just sit there and refuse to write anything if she doesn't know how to spell it. And so one of the things that I'll do is I'll say, you know what, we're just going to take a break, and I'm going to let you go, and I'm going to let you do some reading, and then we're going to come back and try again. And I'm 99% of the time she will go and find that word and look at it. But I just consider that part of learning too. So we don't stress about it that much. And taking a break, I think, is a really good strategy to use for a lot of things that children face. I think everybody needs a moment to just take themselves out of a situation and take a break.
Absolutely. Tricia?
Yeah, and I think one of the things I realized with perfectionism is you tell them, for example, I'm thinking of taking notes. I'm like, I'm going to read from this book. I want you to take notes. They were so stressed out. They didn't know how to take notes because I'd never taught them how to take notes. And so I have a whiteboard, and I will say, I'll start writing a sentence of something that would be good, or write the complete sentence, or write keywords that they can finish the sentence, giving them ways to succeed in it to help them do a good job. Another thing, because my kids, I mentioned 3 of them had dyslexia, they knew the answer, but it was hard writing the answer. So sometimes we would just tell me the answer. Like, you don't need to, because they get so stressed out about writing the answer, getting letters backwards. I mean, anything that would make them struggle, I just try to find a way, like, if you know the answer, we don't need to write it down at this moment. You can tell it to me, or I can write it for you. I could write a sentence for you. Or when it comes to like creative writing, I'll just give them, I'll say, don't even worry about spelling and grammar, just tell me the story. And then later they get to read it to me. So just finding ways where they don't have to get stressed out or struggle on little things, and kind of looking at the big picture of what I'm trying to accomplish and what they're trying to learn.
Perfect. I also, Christina, I was trying to look for it, and I'm sorry I couldn't find it, but there's a few blog posts out there on our blog that talk specifically about infusing a growth mindset. So we do have resources available to you, and there's a ton of things. I think it really is, it's really kind of a hot topic right now, and hopefully you'll see more from us here at Sonlight to help you through that. And I know that, there's a lot of people talking about it right now. So I'll try to post it in the comments when we post the video. Let's see. Okay, let's talk a little bit about meaningful conversations. We've had numerous questions about it, and I know that, Tricia, especially you have a wide range of children in your home. So how do you have those meaningful conversations when there's younger kids around? And, how do you make sure that everyone's benefiting from those conversations?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because my kids, we adopted them, so they didn't even have a lot of the same viewpoints when we first started homeschool. They had some very secular ideas about things, and when we would do our science, which is creation-based, they had a lot of questions, or they would, just all the typical things that the world says is okay that we don't think is okay in the Bible. They would start bringing those up, and there was times where in the moment I felt I needed to address this. And I would just tell the little kids, hey, you guys get a break right now. Go take the dog for a walk around the cul-de-sac, and just really capture those moments. But then there's time, if there's something that like keeps coming up, or they keep just more of a defiant attitude, I know that this is going to take more than just me in the middle of a school day. And so I will talk to my husband about that and say, one of the kids is really struggling with this topic, and I think it's something we need to talk about. And, after the little kids are in bed, that's the time when we would be able to sit there for an hour or an hour and a half and just really talk about the issues and why we believe what we do. And so I think some of the times, like, we don't feel like you have to address it in the moment. There are times where I think, let's just talk about this, let the little kids have a break right now. But there's other times where to really have deep and meaningful conversations, and sometimes we need to think about what to say. Like, sometimes we don't have the answers right away, or we want to bring our spouse in, just say, we will touch this tonight or tomorrow night, and make sure you do. Like, don't say we'll talk about this later and then forget it, but really give yourself a chance to really think through what you want to say.
Great. Deana, do you have anything to add?
I have always found that if you have really little kids, the absolute best time to have a meaningful conversation is nap time. When my girls were really little, I would schedule my boys' level at their nap time so that I could kind of, guarantee that we would have that time. And we were really strict about nap time. I mean, it happened daily. And even when they grew out of it, we said, you don't have to go to sleep, but you have to go to your room, and you have to be still and quiet and read a book or draw or do something like that for a while. And so we kept to that until they were old enough that they could actually sit through and participate in the conversations. But one of the creative things that we have started this year with my daughter, she is my middle child, and she kind of gets left out. I know that that's surprising that a middle child would get left out, but she does. And so I have started a mom and me journal with her, and that's part of her schoolwork. Is every day we write to each other, and she enjoys writing, so it's not laborsome for her. And so I will ask her about the books she's reading. I'll ask her what she thinks. the last journal entry that I did, we talked about author's purpose and things like that. So sometimes it's real personal and sometimes it's school related. But I found that that has been a really good way for me to communicate with her, being that she's a writer. You know, that doesn't require us to just sit face to face. I would never have done that with my boys. They would have hated it. They would have thought that I was punishing them. And so I would not have done that with them, but it's working really well with her.
Great. Sorry. And then the other question that kind of goes along with that is, we've had a lot of questions on our Facebook page about this, and Marci pointed out that it's kind of a hot topic, and so I thought we would tackle it today. But, you know, Sonlight does choose books that maybe other curriculums wouldn't. How do you work the curriculum around the content that maybe your child isn't ready for, or, you know, maybe you need to delay a little bit on having some of those conversations if you have an overly sensitive, or maybe you just don't want to have that conversation yet. So how do you work the curriculum for that? Deana?
Yeah, I can remember when we started Sonlight, I had a few moments where I was like, oh dear, because I am not great at reading the notes ahead of time. And so I did not catch the heads up a lot. And so one of the things that my husband and I just kind of developed was the idea that they are going to be introduced to all of these ideas at some point. And so the best way for them to be introduced to them is in a safe environment. And when some of the history books got a little bit difficult, we just were very matter of fact about it. And we said, you know, this happens and it's very sad. And this is the way that the world has been. And we learn from that. We learn not to do it that way anymore. And so I have not skipped anything in Sonlight because I have found that it doesn't always seem appropriate, but it's actually, in my opinion, one of the more appropriate ways to introduce it. That way I'm in control of it and it's not coming from their friend. I always tell them, if your friend tells you something, it's probably not true. So come and ask me and I will tell you the truth. But I so appreciate Sonlight for that reason, though, because they don't shy away from difficult topics. And, you know, I feel like my kids are so much better prepared to handle things when they see it happen and when they hear it being talked about, because we've already been there. Right.
Good. Tricia?
I would have to agree that there hasn't been anything that I haven't done. It has led sometimes to some really good conversations, but I think adoption is a little bit different too, because they've seen the world. Like, they've been out there, they've had trauma, they've seen more than I've ever seen or experienced. And so even though we adopted the 3 little kids when they were little, they still saw some things. But also adopting the older girls, I said, you know, that bad kid at school that you don't want your kids to hang around? Well, we've just adopted those kids and they're in our house. And so actually Sonlight was a great way for us to talk about these things. And it's just like, this is part of the curriculum. This is just what we're talking about. And then we were able to talk through a lot of subjects that might have been a little bit more challenging to bring up otherwise.
Absolutely. Marci, do you have anything to add to that?
You know, I just agree. I don't think I ever fully skipped anything, but I think, you know, if you encounter something that you're not ready to tackle with your kid, I think it's perfectly okay to edit on the fly. I did edit on the fly a lot. You know, I'm reading a book and I come to something and I go, oh, whoops, and, you know, edit it, or just realize that you don't have to go as deep into an adult level conversation with everything. So, you know, there's age appropriate ways to tackle even a tough subject. You don't have to go into a real deep explanation of why it was bad or the details of what happened, because, you know, just keeping that really age appropriate surface explanation is usually all you need. You know, we tend to look at things through an adult lens.
Absolutely. Thank you so much thank you so much for sharing those things. I know that is often a question, so it's nice to hear your perspectives on that. We're going to shift a little bit. We have Lisa, who wants to know if you homeschool year-round or extend the 30-week schedule at all, and just how you structure your year. Tricia?
Yeah, we start, well, in Arkansas, they start like the second week of August. So I usually try to start then because we like to take vacations when everyone else is in school. And so sometimes, like this year, the week everyone started school, we actually went on a cruise with our kids, which was really great because we had the whole cruise ship to ourselves. Or we went to Disney World the second week of December. So we did a little bit extra over the official Christmas break because we took the time off. And we'll just talk about the kids, that these are kind of the weeks that we're going to do school, but we're going to do a little extra here because we're taking off here. And we do a lot of homeschool conventions that they travel with me, and so they get to experience that and see new places. And so we are really flexible about our schedule. Sometimes I'll go later into the summer. Sometimes we'll take a read-along book, as we're going on these trips, or, but we really love the fact that we can go on vacation or travel when other people are in the regular school days.
Yeah. Deana?
As hard as we have always tried, I cannot do year-round school. I cannot do it. Something about summer air just throws everything out. So we follow a fairly traditional school schedule, but I do try to make our spring break a different week so that we can kind of do what Tricia does, because homeschoolers do not like to go to places with a lot of people. That's just so fun. And so we like to do that. And one thing that I've always done, I am not afraid to take breaks, as I said earlier. And most years I finish on week 34, and I am really happy with it. Those last few pages, sometimes we'll really try to finish a book or something and just double up a little bit, but most years I can get to week 34, and week 35 and week 36 just clearly is not happening. So I'm just like, school's out, guys. See you later. Go play. So I think that's important too, is just to realize that 2 more weeks is not going to make or break a year.
Yeah, absolutely. Marci, anything to add?
No, I pretty much do the same thing. One of the things that we found that worked for us is that it tends to get really hot where we live in August. And the kids wanted to be inside anyway in the air conditioning. So when I started to see that happening, it was just time to start school. And the perk was when it was starting to get warm in the spring, we were done. So, when the kids started going, it's too hot, I was like, great, let's start school.
I love it. I love it.
Especially when they see the box of books coming in, then they're like ready to start anyway.
So you have to know to plan to have your box there in time for the heat wave, but it works.
Yeah. So Pamela is new. She said she's in the UK and she's just starting. She just got her box, but she wanted to know if there's any advice for the new homeschooler with Sonlight. Deana.
I would say that know that your first year is going to be tough, and you're going to feel like you're failing, and you just need to hang in there and you will figure it out. And I think that's my best piece of advice. Everyone that I know, their first year they've just wanted to quit. And I think that everyone has a point in every year where they want to quit. But the first year is particularly tough. But you'll find your groove.
Very good. Tricia?
I would say as wonderful as everything is in the teacher guides, you don't have to do it all. Pick the things that you work. We don't do a lot of the worksheets. I just ask them the questions. If they know the questions, I don't make the photocopies and have them fill it out. And then sometimes there'll be days where I'm like, I don't feel like doing this, but then I'll tell myself, all I got to do is sit down and read a book. So that kind of like talks me into it. Even if we don't do all the other activities, if I just sit down and start reading, then the kids are happy and I'm happy. And then also what I mentioned before, let them do Legos or Play-Doh or all those sorts of things while they're like, don't feel it's like the classroom at home where you have to sit at a desk, you have to sit up straight, you have to do all the things. Let them kind of relax and have fun with it, and I think it'll go well.
Very good. Marci, as a Sonlight advisor, I know that you're often giving advice. What is your piece of advice for a new homeschooler with Sonlight?
It's kind of the same advice I give new moms. Trust yourself and trust what you know about your kids, and work your school around what you know about your kids and yourself and your family, and that it's okay to do that. And the other thing is, you've been teaching your kids all this time, so teaching them isn't anything new to you. You know how to do it, and just trust that you've been doing it this far. You taught them a lot of things already, and this is really not that different.
Very good. Mary, I got your question earlier, so I'm going to ask that now just to make sure that we cover it. She wants to know if you can give any direction about grade keeping in high school years for transcript requirements. Sorry. She's mainly concerned about LA and history. Why don't we start with Marci, because we sort of talked about this a little bit, and what Sonlight can help you with, and then we'll see if maybe Tricia has some advice. Marci?
So I brought this to show you guys. This is a little ebook that we have on our website. If you search transcript, it'll pop up and you can print it. It's a great resource, not only how to structure it, but kind of a loose guideline on how to assign credits. That can vary from state to state depending on what your state lets you do. But in a general sense, a year's worth of work is about 1 credit hour. I don't know if you guys have done anything different, but I think that's pretty standard. Was that answering the question? Is there a part of that I didn't get?
No, I think you're right. We'll post that link in the comments when we're done too for you. So I'll reply to your comment and I'll give you that link. Tricia, do you have any advice for Mary as well?
Yeah. I've graduated 2 in Montana and 2 in Arkansas. So really figure out what the state requirement is. And it's usually a lot less than you think. And then figure out so we made sure they had the math and then the English credits, like make sure that we were doing those. But a lot of the extra activities, they just need a couple of elective, at least in Arkansas. I found out, like, I didn't even need to list everything that we did because we did more than even what the requirement was. I didn't tell my daughter that she was doing more than the requirement. But then I just printed up my own transcript from my computer. I made it look fancy. She, of course, had her ACT scores, which makes it legitimate that I'm not just making up that she got these grades and everything. Her scores kind of went along with her grades. And then we took them, see, my kids have been in 3 different colleges, and all the colleges have just accepted what I took in. Once we had the standardized test with it, I've never had any problem, but I think usually the requirements are a lot less often than you may even think that your kid needs to do. So check that with your state.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. For sure.
Sometimes colleges will have a form for you to use, so you don't even have to stress about the format. Just start keeping track of what they're doing and the grades that you're assigning, probably towards the end of middle school. Because depending on your state's rules, you can sometimes flex with when they took something if it meets a requirement, if it's close. So just start keeping track and keeping your grades. And then as you get closer to senior year, then you can start to figure out where it's all going to fit and how it's going to meet the requirements for the colleges you are looking at. It can be a little bit specific even to what your goal is, the college or the program that you're trying to go into. So, just kind of keep it loose for a while.
Very good. Very good. Altia from Italy. So we have UK and Italy here, which is amazing. She has a 9-year-old and a 6-year-old, and next year she is going to go into, she is doing 1 core for both of them, I'm sorry, and she's going into, I'm guessing it's D because it's American history next year, and she's not sure the little one's ready for that just yet. Do you guys have any advice on how she can maybe structure that a little so it works for her family? Deana.
I guess that I would be curious as to why she's not sure that she's ready. just wondering if it's kind of a reading level thing or a content thing. One of the things that I like to do is I will modify the assignments. So, for example, a lot of my oldest boy hates writing, completely hates it, and has always hated it. So we did a lot of things orally. So maybe some of those, the handouts that are with the instructor's guide, maybe just go through those orally, like Tricia suggested earlier. And I would say, as far as the reading goes, if it's a reading level thing, I would just be sure that I stop often and have them narrate back to you and kind of make sure that they know what's going on. And if they're struggling a little bit, you narrate to them what's happening. But I think that they can, I think you can generally make a core work for just about any age.
Tricia?
Yeah, I would agree about that. I'm trying to think even when I'm reading older kids' books, I mean, these are high school level books to the younger kids. I will stop after a paragraph and explain words that might be hard to understand or ask questions. I could tell kind of when the little ones are kind of zoning off, and sometimes when they know I'm asking questions, I'll emphasize words like they went to Jamestown, and then I'll pause like, where did they go? And they'll say Jamestown. So I'm still reading out loud, but sometimes you just have to have more emphasis or stop and ask more questions while you're reading for the younger ones. But I'm actually surprised like how much they are able to pick up and follow.
Okay, so Ashley, I'm glad you were able to join us. I know you were having a little bit of issue earlier, so thank you for joining us. I wanted to tell you that our advisors can really help you decide what core to use. So you had a question, you have a 9 and 11-year-old. I'm going to have Marci answer that question. I'll have her reach out directly to you so she can talk a little bit about what your family is like and get a little bit better understanding of that. But I did want to ask this question because she asked, how do you ladies manage screen time? Tricia.
Okay, so I am a Luddite, so my kids hardly have any screens. Just because we found them when they first moved in, they made really bad choices on screens. And even my 3 older kids, we're not big screen people, so we have one television in the whole house, and they can get some time in the late afternoon, and they have to share shows. But because I'm there, I mean, it's just an open place. Everyone is sharing. Everyone gets to see what's happening. They don't have cell phones. So even none of my kids, 15 all the way down, do not have cell phones. They do have Kindles, and I'll give them, after they've had time to play, they'll usually come in and ask if they can have time on their tablet. And so, maybe 30 minutes, maybe sometimes a little bit more if we're in the car driving somewhere or something a day. But I'm thankful that, we have neighborhood that they can run around and play. We have a yard. They often choose that, but I would say just kind of setting up limits ahead of time and just saying, okay, this is how much time you get a day. We don't turn on the TV like in the middle of school or before school, because that will just get them distracted and not want to get involved. And then we also have really good filters so that we can make sure that what they're getting now is safe.
Absolutely. Deana?
Yeah, we do not have any handheld devices at all. We tried it and it just did not work for us. I don't like making decisions on saying yes you can or no you can't. So we just kind of generally stick with blanket rules. So we have not done any handheld devices. Video games are for weekends only, and that works well for us because most of the time we're really busy on the weekends. So they don't get just a whole lot of time on the weekends to play either. And so it kind of keeps them, not thinking about that just a whole lot. And like Tricia, we are outdoor people. My kids love to go outside and play. And thankfully we have lots of space to do that. So they really enjoy being outside. And recently, we are a TV family. I'm just going to be honest with that. We like our TV shows at lunchtime. We watch I Love Lucy or Andy Griffith. and then we'll watch in the evenings. And just recently, we kind of sat down as a family and we said, our TV watching is getting a little too much. It's taking up a little too much of our time. And so we kind of all said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to say, if we want to watch something, we have to bring it before the family. And if everyone wants to watch it and enjoy it together, then we'll watch it. But if not, we're not just going to turn on the TV and sit and watch it. And that has really helped a lot. So I think that with screen time, I think establishing those rules ahead of time whenever possible, and then reevaluating if you see that it's a little much, and bringing the kids in and saying, here's what I've noticed about our screen time.
Very good. Very good. I think it's a struggle in everyone's family. And it's always a conversation that you should be having. We are constantly having the same sort of conversations at my house. So I feel like this is all very good advice. Christina has a 7, a 5, a 3, and a 6-month-old baby. So she is struggling a little bit with, developing a good homeschool routine and a house routine to fit school into their day. She says it's like herding cats over here. I think we can all relate. Anyway, is there any advice that we can offer Christina as we've kind of been there? Deana?
I would say that you are in the throes of motherhood and you need to just hang in there. And instead of beating yourself up about the fact that you don't have a schedule and you don't have this at this time, I would go for a flow of the day. Maybe not even a routine, but just a flow. And say, okay, we get up at this time. And with a 3-month-old, I do not think that you even need to try to be up at a certain time every day. If you're up at night and you have the opportunity to sleep a little, I think you need to. And so I would say to just kind of start establishing, what do you do when everybody gets up? Do you immediately, start in your day, or do you want to go sit on the couch for a minute, or just kind of establish a predictable flow for the day? It would be my advice, and just don't beat yourself up.
Very good. Tricia?
Yeah, and I think I was going to say those are the hardest years when you have all the little babies and the little toddlers. But also, I think another important part of homeschooling is that family aspect. You're all together. You're reading books. You're enjoying time together. You're working on, just sibling rivalry and all the different things. That is just as an important part of the family unit and education as anything else. And now that I have 3 adult kids, my daughter's in the Czech Republic, but my sons, who don't live at home anymore, are probably over 2 to 3 times a week playing board games, hanging out with us. My oldest son brings his kids over and we hang out. So just know that that's just as important, or if not more important, than education. And then also, if you could do anything, just read those Bible stories. Like if that's the only thing you get done during the day, say a prayer together, read Bible stories, and know that, you're in the hardest part, but it does get easier as the kids get older.
Absolutely. Marci, you have any advice?
Oh, these ladies have great advice. I agree. Just, school becomes your lifestyle. And so make your house a house of learning. Make your lifestyle about learning, and all of that other stuff you'll pick up as you go. But just don't stress about the formal learning. Just do life together and they'll learn so much.
Absolutely. Okay, so Grace says that her kids aren't super outdoorsy. And she said, we're getting to the playground in about a month, which should help, or we're getting a playground in about a month, which should help. But they need a little bit more activity. She works from home 4 days a week, so they can't just get up and leave throughout the days. Do you have any advice on how to get them a little indoor activity so she can do what she needs to? Tricia?
So is it indoor activities or outdoor activities? Which one?
She says they're not outdoorsy, but she needs them to do activity. So
okay, yeah. Because I was gonna say, if you're not outdoorsy, just enjoy. Sometimes we'll do school on the front lawn, but that's still taking them outside. But our kids are Lego kids. We get perler beads, craft stuff, which makes a mess, but you just kind of have to deal with the mess. And, sometimes I'll say, okay, today we're only doing perler beads. Every one of you has to do something with perler beads, and that kind of cuts out. But the more like fun material, crafty stuff you have around, the kids will have fun with those things.
Very good. Deana?
This is going to be a pretty nerdy answer. I'm just going to be upfront with it. But I used to do exercise videos where it was the walk at home exercise videos. And I'm telling you, my kids loved them. I mean, they would get right there with me and we would just all be walking away. And so I would say, Netflix and Amazon have all kinds of exercise videos, and my kids really enjoy those, especially on days when they can't get outside. So if you're looking for some real large motor indoor ideas, I would look into that.
I did yoga with my kids. I don't do it anymore. I need to get back into it, but I did it and they loved it. We would do like a beginner yoga and they would try to hang as much as they can. So I do agree with that. I think there's a little bit of, a little bit goes a long way there. Let's see. Science keeps squeezing in and out. Any advice? I don't understand, Sarah. She's having a hard time fitting science into her day. Sorry. Any advice on how to do that? Tricia?
Yeah, I hired my son to do my science for me. I don't know if that's the best advice. But before my son did it, my high schooler, I would pay her $5 per science project if she would do all the science, because science is not my thing. Like, we could write all day, we could read all day. I don't even mind like sitting down doing math, but science is just like having to get all the materials out. It just wasn't my thing. And so I'd pay my older daughter $5 to do the science activities with her little kids, which she had to actually like set it all up and like actually teach them. So it was not just like a 2-minute thing. It had to be, the whole hour of science learning.
Absolutely. Deana?
So I actually struggle with that too, and that's the reason why I'm trying to kind of, my viewpoint on it is that I'm going to try to do an afternoon workshop. And my thought process is that instead of having to drag science out every day, I can just kind of focus on one day, having all that out and ready. Again, we are just brand new into it. So I cannot tell you if it works or not, but I will let you know how it goes.
I love it. I love it. Well, I think we're over an hour at this point. So if we've missed any of your questions, we'll make sure that we answer them in the comments once we post the replay. Again, I want to make sure that I note you can find Tricia at triciagoyer.com, and you can find Deana at redeemingthedaysblog.com. They also are both contributors to the Sonlight blog, so you can sometimes find their stuff over there too. And then one last question I saw that we got at the very end was it was about groups and getting support. So I wanted to make sure to give a little bit of a plug that we are starting Sonlight in-person groups, and that should be starting in the next few months. So watch for announcements about that, and hopefully that will help you as well. And as always, Marci is there to answer your questions along with our other advisors. So if there's anything that you missed here or you think of afterwards, definitely reach out to our advisors at sonlight.com/advisors, and there's multiple ways to get a hold of them. So I hope you all enjoyed this, and I look forward to joining you again for our next Facebook Live. Thank you so much, Tricia. Thank you so much, Deana. Thank you so much, Marci. See you all soon. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.